Microcampus is a trip where we stay at a place in China called Xizhou, and we stay there for 4 weeks working on a topic of our choice. While staying at this part of China, we try to get out of our bubble, which meant that instead of doing something that is very familiar to us, we try things that is harder or different from what we are used to. My topic is seeds, especially seeds in rural China. This amazing trip allowed me, James, to learn myself better and also learned how to get things done on time. I chose the topic seeds because I wanted to try new things, and this topic is new and no one has done it before. In order to understand the use of seeds in Xizhou, one must consider the use of seeds in Xizhou's past and the use of seeds in Xizhou's present. A really common thing in the past was that the richer the family was, the more complex the pattern and the design of the chair was. For example, chairs for the rich had drawings of dragons and other powerful animals, while chairs for the poor did not. Also, the rich had their seats painted, and the poor could not afford the expensive paint. The rich used a lot of expensive chairs because they had to serve the guests. The seats were usually placed at the ancestors' room or the living room. A lot of the times, the rich also used benches to serve the guests if there were too many of them. Seats were also used for status. People who had more power had larger and higher chairs, while women, who usually had less power than men, could not sit at the same seat or seat that was the same height as men's chair. People with more power had fancy chairs made of good wood. People like farmers, who did not have both power and money, made small stools by themselves, which was more durable rather than fancy. In a certain period of time, seats were divided into seats for women and men, just as mentioned before. One of the biggest differences of the two seats was that seats for men had armrests, while seats for women did not. Also, while I was looking at the seats in Mr. Yang's antique shop, I realized that the seats for men were more grand and higher. Women were not allowed to sit in chairs for men, and the only exception for that was when the woman had a lot of power. In this case, the seat was a couple chair, and they were both the same height. In the present Xizhou, the locals use seats in a completely different use from the past. First of all, they use the seats to keep themselves healthy. When I was out doing my inquiry project and having some conversations with people, everyone I asked said that if you sit on the floor and the floor is really hot, then you will get diarrhea. I have asked people like Mr. Yang, Miss Zhao, Mr. Zhao, and lots of other people, but they all said the same thing. The most common use for seats, as you all know, are using it to have a rest. Just like the rest of us, the locals of Xizhou also uses seats to have a rest. Local shops near Sifangjie also uses stools to make the most of the space they have. The local shops near Sifangjie do not have a lot of space to use. To make the most of it, they have to make sure that everything uses as less space as possible. Local shops use stools instead of chairs because this way they can use more stools with the same amount of space. Another use people use seats for is to interact with other people and be social. When I was out doing my inquiry project, I saw people sitting and playing games on the table. They not only had seats for themselves, but also had some spare seats for others to watch the game. When I look at these people playing games on the table, this makes me think that the seat is like the phone and the table is like the app. Nowadays, everyone goes on social media. Seats and table is like the old style way of doing social media. During the past few weeks, I've learned a lot about myself, my topic, and most importantly, how to talk to people. During this day, I also made connections with people, which is what I have signed up for. While I was doing this inquiry project, I ran into a lot of problems and also made a lot of mistakes. But every time I ran into a problem and made mistakes, I learned how to solve them and how to recover the mistake. I think this microcampus trip is a really good experience and I will not forget this.